Behind the Middle Belt killings is Caliphate ethnic cleansing. Behind Niger Delta agitation is Caliphate seizure of oil and gas. Behind Biafra and Odua agitation, Caliphate imposed unitary Nigeria. Behind the Caliphate itself is the rogue 1999 Constitution. Elections 2023 is Caliphate push to retain the 1999 fraud. Nigerians, say no to any further election in the country. Let's take down the 1999 Constitution and save our people and our land.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is Ghana's constitutional force majeure has shut down 1999 Constitution, transition now or dissolution. In the next 18 minutes and few seconds, we'll be listening to two Nina's broadcasts entitled Nina's constitutional force majeure has shut down 1999 Constitution and Crash of 1999 Constitution is End of Unitary Nigeria, Sovereignty Retrieval next. Thank you for listening.
In response to the flurry of inquiries that have been coming to the Inner Secretary concerning where we are, the world about enforcement, here's our response. That's our answer. You will recall that the stated objective, the grand objective of the constitutional force majeure in the attempt to implement the consensus we had built against the constitution of death was to target the election as the venue for the fight for what will happen. To target that 2023 election in a manner that will collapse the election. We are rejecting the election on account of our rejection of that constitution and the unitary union of death it imposes on us in that order. Look at this domino 2, and if we back further to domino 1, you will see clearly coming from your right towards the left, you will see the pillar we marked election, the next pillar constitution, the next pillar union, and underneath the pillar of election you will see the lever of the three blocks, focusing their efforts together. You see the arrow that they treasure together in one direction to topple the election as a mark of their rejection of the constitution that made them slaves in their home life. Our report today is that that strategic objective has been met. You may argue as you get it amongst those who do not know how such things are done. Those who were expecting people to, because when people heard about force majeure, they thought there would be riot on the street. The system was already sharpening its market to behave people who are coming to do. They didn't know it was a very sophisticated thing that will put election in disarray. And we were saying it every day for 3 years. You see this election, we'll do whatever we need to do to sabotage it from producing an outcome that will stand. And that is a mark of our rejection of the constitution by which the winner of that election will govern. And when that constitution goes down from the angle it will be attacked, then we will come to the realization that we have no union. That union that is erected upon that constitution will go down with that constitution. Where are we today? The election went as badly as it could go, such that the system had to sacrifice the constitution to save the election. That was what the Supreme Court did in October of 2023. That was what INEC was doing at the time they were declaring the one who didn't win the election. They both waived the 25% required by that. It was the pressure from all the sides that they were just trying to rescue something from, because the people had woken up. Everybody was now doing things they would normally not have done before. And so bottom line is that the election went into a spin. The system had to sacrifice the constitution to save the election. And then we're interpreting their action to them now. The union is at an end because the constitution that held it together, no buried it. Remember in the broadcast we were telling them that if they chose to waive that 25%, it means that that constitution which we have been trying to put to death has now been abandoned to die on the street by the Supreme Court, and we're going to join them. We are joining them. Where we are going to find that we are going to demonstrate that there's union. And if anybody is wondering how we came to that conclusion, the National Assembly that wants to write a new constitution has only confirmed to all of you that the constitution by which we have been operating, by which we have been unionized against our will, is dead. That's why they're looking for a new one. If the constitution was still alive, they would be doing the amendment and boasting. And so the strategic objective for the constitutional force majeure, look at it: election down, constitution down, union down. The only thing remaining now, transition to go and rework the union in terms of who and who wants to predict. They will identify themselves by referendum. Then they will define the formations in which they are going to relate. That's what becomes the structure, whether they want to be in 4 regions or 6 regions or whatever be the formation, but certainly not 36 states. For the lunatics that are talking about carving out more of this, we are the vanguard of the campaign. NINAS is the standard framework for the campaign for self-determination for the constituent companies, meaning that little Osoko, little Ogo, little Ichekiri, all of them will be, in their space in that self-determination. They will be custodians and operators of their sovereignty. So to that extent, we will say confidently that Nigeria has been brought to where we wanted it to land. A logjam, a constitutional logjam. If anybody thinks that what happened on February 25 in 2023 has become basis for a 4-year presidential term that will not be challenged by anything, no. The election ended inconclusive. The outcome remained the interregnum. What you are celebrating as a president is, yes, there's somebody in government house pretending to be Nigeria's president. But the Supreme Court will not place itself. We will not allow, since the right to make constitution is exclusive to the sovereign constituent component, and we have laid a charge against the legitimacy of the constitution that was imposed on us. Nobody is able to make constitution and impose on us, including the one that Magada did. And so, if we are tolerating that, for us to get peacefully to the table of discussion, and then the Supreme Court that is a product of that constitution will now abandon that constitution and place itself above the prescriptions of that constitution. We are the ones saying, let's take down this constitution. But until we get to that discussion table, we also said it in that our force majeure. Let those who have not read that constitutional force majeure, for their own good, for their own sake, because the ignorance will only afflict them, will only cause them to perish, like the Bible already condemned them. Because we stated clearly why we are saying what we are saying, and why we are going to do what we are doing, what we are going to do. We said clearly that if after all the conversations we can't find common ground, then we consider our allegiance. What is the meaning of our reconfiguration of allegiance? Go and read your operative part. If you can't read all, read your operative part, where that 5-point proposition, were listed. From the word accordingly, downward. From the word accordingly. When you are reading some chapter or some kind of resolution, when you come to the word accordingly, pay attention, because that is now the action that will follow from all of what has been laid out. And so we are saying that the constitutional force majeure succeeded 100% in its objective in bringing Nigeria to that constitutional lockdown. We are not at war. Think there's confusion, but at least we are still discussing. I mean, it's still being discussed. It may not be in a round table setting. There are people sitting in Abuja and talking about our heads about what they're going to do. There are others sitting in the standing in Civic Center in Lagos saying, you must now call a meeting of the sovereign constituent company, who will have to decide how to reconfigure their union. And if they can't get it, if for any reason they are not able to find common ground, we must discuss forthwith. That is where the discussion is going on everywhere. But NINAS is trying to bring it to where it can produce an outcome. What is that outcome? Successor protocol. Whether as one political union or independent units of successor sovereign state entities that will emerge from the defunct Federation of Nigeria. It brings us to where the objective of the force majeure to knock down this constitution and end the stupid union of debt that comes with it has been achieved. Where we go next is rallying those who have been locked into that prison they call Nigeria. Whether it's the Yoruba that want Oduduwa Republic or the Igbo that want the East that want the Biafra Republic, whatever it is, or the Niger Delta that want the return to controlling, to owning and controlling their resources, or the middle belt that is without defense and help for being slaughtered in their own ancestral space. Everything you look for, every change you look for, or the young people that want to see a better country, that say they want to take back their country. Young people, this is who took your country. Those who are telling you to take back your country, it is by taking down this constitution that you are able to take back your country. Every other thing you are doing is a product of ignorance or dishonesty on the part of the people leading you to say, hey, let's go and replace them in government house. It's not the people in government house that took your country. It is the constitution that took your country and handed to them in the manner they are managing it. The constitution mandated the corruption you see. I've cited the sections to you. They don't pay you obligation. They have the spare key to the treasury. Go and take section 81 and 82. Ask the lawyers you know, especially the ones that go to run their mouth on TV. Ask them whether the president does not have spare key to the treasury. And the governors in section 121, 122. Ask them whether under section 308, the kind of immunity we have there. So they don't pay you obligation in section 6C. They have the spare key to the treasury in section 81, 82 for president, 121, 122 for governor. They all have immunity. You can't question them in all the 8 years they might be in office. They don't. So what country are you taking back? You are slaves in that. You are slaves in that country. The slave have no rights, human rights, even right to life. You don't have any right at all under this constitution. So to take back your country is to take down this constitution. Anybody who is rallying you to come, let us go to government house so that the PDP will replace APC or Labour Party replace PDP, they are lying to you. We challenge them, get this video, bring them to answer to it. If they dare, if they think they have answers, let us have a debate. Let us have a debate. The media have been pretending they do not understand what is being discussed. We will not say any more thing to you. But when the fraud will come, it will carry everybody, including the media that is pretending around this subject matter. Every day you turn the TV, they are discussing inanities, inconsequential. Who has rigged more? Who has stolen what? You leave the robbery gang intact. And you are coming to entertain me with the story of another goat that was stolen. Yesterday you discussed chicken that is stolen. Today you bring goat. Next day they say cow is stolen. But you do not want to partake in the discussion about the robbery gang that we are saying. Let us dismantle this robbery gang. Nigeria is a criminal enterprise under this constitution. Everything you see, whether people are killing people or stealing the treasury dry, or even the impunity of saying what can you all do to us in the manner we see all the time. This is where it's flowing from. And so if the media is not prepared to join that discussion, if Labour Congress is not prepared to join that discussion, then you have chosen to die in your misery. Those planning revolution, the revolution is to join in saying we cannot continue in a constitution that render us slaves in our homeland. If you are not doing that, ignorance, dishonest, or both. That brings me to what shall we do now that we have defeated this constitution? Sooner than you can imagine. In fact, we're looking at this first quarter, which will end at the close of March. We did announce in December of 2023 that by the time the first quarter is winding down, we'll be inviting cleaners, we'll be making an altar call. That altar call is to separate countrywide those who now reject this constitution as the source of their misery. This basis of union is also your source of misery. They will be told what to do to stand on one side. Everybody else will be counted as being on the side of the enemy that imposed this constitution, enforcing this constitution on all of us. Once that altar call is made, then the country will see the number of people who have rejected this bad arrangement in comparison with those who are trying to enforce it against everybody. That is the logjam that will have to be resolved by transition. There will be no other way. And let me say it on behalf of Ninas just one more time. The choices available to everybody now is either, including the government, either we calmly surrender to this superior plan that accommodates everybody, because we are not idle in the government house to go to die. We are saying come so that we can go to transition. Like South Africa went to transition in 1990 to resolve their apartheid quagmire, their apartheid bind. Let us know that either we accept to go and solve the problem now, or that is surrender unconditionally to this superior plan, this comprehensive plan, or we get ready for comprehensive defeat. That crowd of people we are throwing. There was a governor that poured bread on the floor of a warehouse, and people were falling on top of one another to take as many. Maybe the people came in before they made the arrangement for how to share it with them. They saw it and came in and began to fight over it. You saw people who were being flogged in Lagos for small loaves of bread. You saw people who were in market who dropped. You saw the woman that had a child that dropped, fainted, hadn't eaten for 3 days. You saw how that child was. These are the kind of people you are governing, and you are taking 30 billion to go and buy food. All that has come to an end. We either go to solve this problem, or it will come upon us because we have remained adamant and unthinking. Stop here.
Thank you for listening. The next item on the agenda is synopsis of the topic. Please, Howard, you have the floor for that.
You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Nigeria Candidates Clubhouse. Once again, we proceed in a very important which is spearheaded by Ninas to the effect of enlightening our people to the true state of the problems we are facing in this country, Nigeria, and the way forward. And once again, we reiterate and express the understanding that the 1999 Constitution is our problem, and by virtue of the good work that Ninas has been doing over the years, and most importantly, the declaration of the constitutional first measure, the 1999 Constitution, which is the instrument of domination and oppression of the Fulani Caliphate, have been legitimized and shown for what it's really worth. The criminal government and instruments of domination and manipulation by the Fulani Caliphate. and its hangers on. So proceeding further is to the work of the unions is also geared towards organizing our indigenous people to come to the realization that this jailbreak needs to see the light of the day. Please break away from this unity government of Nigeria, backed up by the mentality of the 1999 Constitution. And so it is important for our people to understand that the agitations towards self-determination are either to be advocated by various groups, some to the extent of employing violence and self-harm, will not solve this problem. And the only way that we can come out of this quagmire is through the route that Minas has started out, which is the declaration of the constitutional enforcement and the various pieces of information that Minas is making available to our peoples of various indigenous ethnic nationalities. It will be to open their eyes to see the reality of the situation and what it really is. And so it is important at this stage that all hands can be on deck to see that this position is not to be brought down. It has been done in other countries like South Africa, when they did away with the apartheid position that was not benefiting them in any way. So it's not rocket science, and we don't hear. So it is high time now to pass it together and see to this thing is not carried out. And it must see the light of day. Let's go into the
Thank you very much, Elijah. I'd like to introduce the NINA spokesperson, Mr. Tony Nadu, to explain more about today's topic. So please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome everybody to tonight's session. And we have come to a critical threshold. That difference between science and technology is that science is a theory and technology is the application of the theory in a manner that becomes, that is to say, you can learn all the physics in this world, but if you cannot use that knowledge to develop some engineering service or product or skill that can transform that knowledge into, some kind of usability, then your science remains dormant. The same way, in all of what we set out to do, I'm talking about NINAS and its campaign for the dismantling of the Union of Death, for the extrication of the trapped victims of that Union of Death. We have gone step by step. First, we outlined what the problem was. We identified the Fulani conquest agenda, the Caliphate conquest agenda, as the source of the problem we're trying to solve. We identified the Constitution of Nigeria as the mechanism by which that enemy is unleashing upon us, all of what we now have to extricate ourselves from. We also identified the willing tools, the allies they have secured from amongst our midst that are enabling them, our own brethren, from our parts, from the territories of the victims. We identify them as those who collectively, working with that enemy, enforce that constitution by which that enemy, imposed by that enemy, and by which that enemy is able to exercise this, and maintain this stranglehold on us, on our sovereignty, on our lands, on our rights, rendering us slaves in our homeland. And so we have arrived at that point at which the entire process must now transform itself into the results, into the outcome we advertised. How will that happen? Having identified the enemy, we marked out the battlefield clearly. The map, that's Nina's map, in which the Sharia belt is on one side and the rest of the country on the other side, further delineated into 3 blocks of units that could become countries of their own if no common ground is found. And if we are going to be in a federation, the formations in which that federation or even confederation could be discussed meaningfully. We have taken it through the process of consultation with the very peoples of those blocks. The Ijaw had been in meetings where Ogoni and Anang and Efik are present with Igbo in the eastern part. The Yoruba have been in their own meetings with documents on the table they are considering for how they proceed with their sovereignties that will be recovered when this constitution goes down. Ditto for the Middle Belt. The Tiv, the Birom, the Joko, the Ketaf, and all in between, Idoma, have also sat around, made out maps of their territories, and worked out what we call charters of relationships by which of course those things will be ratified, because it's also in the east, in the lower Niger territory, that's the eastern half of southern Nigeria, according to that map of the Ninas map that delineated all this. You see that they were clearly mapped out in their ancestral spaces, and they are coming together under a charter of relationship that spells out what they have agreed among themselves to be able to federate, and their readiness for dealing with the rest of the world, which could be the rest of Nigeria, or if we are still discussing any form of union. And so these are processes, and then we came to where, having gone to solemn assemblies and coming to where the joint multi-regional actions culminating in the enforcement mechanisms represented by the the force majeure, the constitutional force majeure that we had to declare in 2020, December 16th. That constitutional force majeure was the point at which the consensus that had been built against that enemy and his collaborators, the consensus that had been built against that constitution of 1999 and its enforcers, the force majeure was the point at which that consensus, which is of the majority in the Union, the entire South, the entire Middle Belt, had to be operationalized. The Union defined by that constitution, the collapse of that constitution from the joint activities and actions of the alliance, is actually end of Union. The defeat of the constitution in the first place means that we have no constitution. We have had no constitution since 1999. You had the colloquium in Lagos of Emeka Nyoko and Patriot say that the constitution lacked legitimacy and that no amount of amendment can cure that foundational flaw from its origin. Meaning that from 1999, that constitution was imposed by decree, we have not had any constitution. But those who have been laboring, those who have been tormented under that constitution, those whose economic assets have been seized, those who have been slaughtered across the length and breadth of Nigeria under the imprimatur of that constitution, under the mandate of that constitution, the forged mandate of that constitution, they didn't know. They didn't seem to know. And for 24 years, we were telling them, because we raised the issue right from 1999, but we also realized there was a responsibility on us to organize what will happen by the time that constitution began to go down, because we knew very clearly what we set out to do, to take down that constitution and the union erected upon it, the unitary union that that is not working for anybody. The union of death that it has foisted on us. The untenable union of 1914 that was maintained by Brigadier Jangai all these many years, decades. It was clear to us that in targeting that constitution, it was to end the union and to compel a discussion, a renegotiation, or a dissolution without further ceremony. Because there is no end in sight to the disaster that will continue to flow from that constitution. The foreign conquest agenda is not waiting for anybody to agree or disagree. They're just coming upon everybody from all over the sub-region. The guns are in their hands because they pretend to be a federal government in a situation where a federation collapsed since mid-60s. And those who should have been leading the campaign to extricate their own people from that dangerous situation, from that forest of 1,000 demons that Nigeria has become for everybody. They are busy contesting election. They want to be senator and governor. Some want to be president among them. Others are minister, contractor. But they all subscribe to that constitution that tie their people down to be slaughtered, to be expropriated, to be impoverished to death. While in return, they make humongous profits as they gain those offices. And all of them across all the political parties are guilty of what I just spoken about, whether it's PDP or APC or Labour Party or AGA. They all subscribe to that constitution that guarantee the misery of their people. And so, it was to draw the line between those who reject that constitution and those who are enforcing it, who embrace it, who subscribe to it, who are enforcing it, that we began to talk about the altar call to separate the two. And it's all in furtherance of the operationalization of the outcome that we already have achieved. The consensus against that caliphate invasion and this invasion is already in place. The consensus against that constitution is already in place. The first major activation was to set up a framework for bringing it to where it had to be consummated. Consummated in the sense of on which date will this constitution cease to be the basis of union? On which date will this constitution cease to be the basis of governance? And so we divided the periods into three. We know that most of our people have not become conscious enough. And so we began with enlightenment, massive enlightenment sensitization campaign. Throughout 2021, then when more people had woken up, we began to go to the purpose of that first phase is to delegitimize, let those who should know, let that majority that are living in this torment realize that the instrument by which they are being tormented has been defeated, because it was a straightforward matter of we did not make this constitution. Our signature has been implanted by fraud. And so the document is a forgery and a fraud that cannot stand. Because at no point did we, the people of Nigeria, meet to now resolve solemnly and firmly that we are going to be one indivisible union, and therefore going ahead to write constitution. At no time did any of that happen. And the proof of that charge is right in the document itself. The decree number 24, by which Osama al-Bakr, foisted the document on everybody, tells the story of how they came about the document. So there's no line of defense, there's no line of argument available to the people who are holding us hostage. That they just formed a committee that went to write whatever they wrote and said that they met people in their power who told them that they wanted a return to 1979 Constitution. Even in the face of the fact that the 1979 is no different, they set up a constituent assembly. They drafted what they wanted out of the constituent assembly. The what they wanted to adopt, they had drafted since 1975-76. They set up the constituent assembly in 1977 to rubber stamp it. The constituent assembly debated and removed most of the things that could cause this kind of problem we are facing now. Obasanjo, on behalf of that enemy, one of our winning tools, on the 21st of September 1978, announced 17 amendments to the finished work of that constituent assembly, and by decree promulgated what was left to be called 1979 Constitution. So all of these illiterate lawyers are going about saying that, and even some of the people I see in the media say, well, if you reject 1970, if you reject 1999, the one of 79 was a product of the people. There was constituent assembly, and it is that same product of 77 constituent assembly, which became 79 Constitution, that was adopted in 99 by the media. And so really, there's no argument anybody. That's what some of them are still saying. Whereas the man that drafted that made that draft, President had long since 2013 confessed to the tragic mistake himself and Rotimi Williams made in writing a constitution that more or less confiscated the sovereignties of the people into the hands of this enemy. And so we come back to the remedy available to all of us in the kind of thing we have been caught in. That sensitization that was the first leg, the first phase, was to delegitimize. That legitimization is where a majority will now be saying, no, this cannot remain basis. We thought that sufficient numbers may have woken up at the time the election was coming in 2023, because we said it since last 2020 that for us to get ourselves out of this big, very deep quagmire, we must demonstrate our rejection of that constitution by rejecting elections, further national elections mandated by that constitution, because the winner of such an election will govern with that constitution, swear to uphold and defend that constitution, which means all of what we complain about, the fact that our sovereignty has been confiscated by that constitution and Nigeria, the fact that there are 36 states in which we are now and a voiceless minority, the fact that there are some government leaders that compounds our situation in place of representation, in the place of sharing of opportunities, and the fact that there are 68 items that make it impossible for us to do anything for ourselves. We can't create our electricity, we can't do our infrastructure, we can't elect to govern us, we can't do any under that, we can't organize our security. And unless the constitution goes down, one of these things will change. We remain the minorities that own nothing, with no guns in our hands, even many people we can beat down and join us with guns. And so, when we had tried to get people to see that if they went to the election, they were only going to reinforce that constitution and reinforce their bondage, we made some progress. At that point where I think it was in 2020, the 1 or 2, there was I think it was 2022 that Alfred Malala had raised a call to say, let's suspend the journey to election and go to sort out this constitution before we proceed. More people were gathering towards our position. Then the owners of the plantation, Britain, the owners of this criminal enterprise, United Kingdom, summoned one of their own, Peter Obi, to Downing Street. He was drafted to go into the election race, it was from his entry that the network of young people who were already looking in our direction began to see an alternative route. Great leadership, Utomi and Co. Oh, great leadership. Everybody began to chant as if the emergence of P2B will become the replacement for the constitution. Incidentally, the same P2B had, at the commencement of his campaign, said that the constitution is not the problem. That's a cardinal offense against all of those who have been slaughtered, against those who are still in that danger of being slaughtered. That P2B will say that the problem with Nigeria is not the constitution, and that it is the leadership he will provide. And then he began to cite animals and kind of statistics all over the place about how Bangladesh and Korea. Is that the problem? We are saying we have no union. There are people who are not willing to discuss with us, just like the British refused to discuss with us in 1914, have seized our sovereignties, have seized our lands, have seized our lives. People said that is not the problem. So he even when he was questioned by the media, he said that he would drive us, that he would drive everybody. And so, in that grand deceit, the people had mobilized for something for institution of their freedoms and sovereignty. The South and Middle Belt. Some dishonest elders, and I use that word dishonest advisedly, some dishonest elders, because we sat down with them across the length and breadth of Nigeria. They came up as leaders who are now leading them to go to secure power. So it was the alliance we built across 21-year period that was directed alliance for liberation, for the freedom of the people from servitude and bondage. That these elders and their co-travelers contested election. Peter Obi and Bakotomi and the rest of them. It was that same alliance we built, the church people joined them, the church leaders, Pentecostal and Catholic and all of them, mobilizing, going to PDC. They presented their candidate as the solution to the problem. How would the emergence of P2B have ended? The same P2B that had spoken against touching that on you saw him in the House, pledging to the people who imposed the constitution on us that everything will be preserved. And actually saying that the constitution is not the problem. At what point will we then begin to see that the constitution is not, because he says leadership, and he presents himself as that leadership that will change all these things. How will it change? When we still have 812 governments to finance every month, and as president, he will not have the right to touch any alphabet in that constitution. Because there will still be 7 foreign government areas, 36 states, federal capital territory, and the humongous federal government. There will still be 600 of those prison lists. He will not have any right to touch any of those things as president. The provision that creates corruption and comprehensively protects the beneficiaries of grand corruption will still be in that constitution. He is not going to be able to touch it. And so, what will that leadership and the same fellow that in 2021 said that the problem is that the engine of the Nigerian railway is not, and that is not a set of the set should not be for a new driver, rather for a new constitution of the president of the vehicle. The same P2B has said so the year before he got into the race. So something is wrong with that somersault. Because if we look further back, we will see that in the period leading to 2015 election, between 2013 and 2014, when he was governor in Anambra and vice chairman of the economic council, whatever they do in Abuja, where governors gather under the chairmanship of the vice president of the country, he was the one that said, at the time Jonathan was being hounded all around, that it is not the president that is problem, that is the constitution. Because we engaged him in 2012 when he was the governor on this subject, so he knows sufficiently. That was why he made those two statements in the period between 2013 and 2021 about the constitution being the problem and not what is in government. So where did we find the engine to launch the obedience into the vehicle that they have now been swindled in? And so we begin to see dishonesty a lot more than ignorance. He does know. If he didn't say what he said about the constitution prior to that joining the race in 2022, maybe we will have maybe we will somehow even reluctantly resolve our doubts in his favor that he may not know because he's not a lawyer. So he knows the reason I'm making this stop on him is that again, even now that the constitution has been brought down, that the National Assembly is talking about writing a constitution and handing to us in 24 months. That the numbers corruption say, let us go and write either we adopt 2014 conference or we go and set up constituent assembly that admitted that the existing one, the old, the 1999 constitution is dead. So the election, instead of doing the finishing that is required to take us to vote, take so that we can go settle this matter once and for all. Like we told them in the previous round, we were just telling them, trying to persuade them, but now we have told if what they are doing, and therefore whatever it will take, we hold the blood of one of those that they kill. During that election, all the people who have been killed since after that election, all the people who are now living in misery. From that election, we put our blood on the head of those who died to this election, the one that passed. And so, if they are still 2027 election under the 1999 constitution, such a person is an enemy that ought to be stopped by any means necessary. Stopped by any means necessary. The candidates, the party, and all of those whom they will deceive. The top leaders in Nigeria are going to be treated like criminals if they do not stand up for the truth. The truth is that we have no constitution. Nigeria is now a union at gunpoint. One of Professor Anthony Akewale described the situation in those words. So if a Catholic priest, Professor Anthony Akewale, will say that there is a union at gunpoint, and we have the name of God, who will ignore that? Who will sovereignty? Who will work against the truth that we have not made this constitution? And they are ready people towards level of that constitution. I tell you, we are going to pursue them to wherever they hide. The people that decide in those cathedrals, the people that decide in those chasing after them with bombs, when they find out that they are selling them, mercy, in order to make profits from their friends who become president and governor. So, the church leaders in Nigeria, if we will see where we were addressing them before that election. Whether the sheep will now eat the shepherd, because some of them say it is where their sheep will go. Current President Obama says where the sheep will go, they go. We have gone all to all of them, probably explaining the situation to them, they have no sympathy at all for their flock that will be killed. They live in comfort. And maintain their border. The carrying bishops. Only one order. And of within. We can go 50 months like that. So at the time they began to speak up and then they began to change their positions. They are standing with the enemy of the people in this matter. They are standing with the politicians that are defending and upholding their constitution, renewing the life of the country in the war of elections, and saying that same vigor within the presidency that led us to this election. They must go back to the podium and say it to the whole of the world. It's a fraud, and that we cannot go to any election under it. We are still in 2024. Election is in January 2027 for the idiots that to say, oh, election is so near now, let's finish with it before we come back to this discussion. Let us tell you all in advance that nobody will listen to that because you had all the 4 years. 2023 happened to the time another disaster event program to happen to you and your flock in 2027. So it is not a time to say you are politically correct or you sit on. If you ever, even before 23, if you ever mobilize anybody towards any election, you must now make up for that wrongdoing by going to say very loudly that we cannot go to another election. We must go to transition like South Africa did in 1990 to sort out this matter. If you are not as the enemy that has to be put out of the way, because when you look at the millions of people you deceive and look at their lives now compared with your own life, you are not in any danger. They are the ones living in that danger. So the political actors and their collaborators, the Bar Association, all of the support, all of the groups that the NGOs and civil society people that will be talking about fair and fair election will raise panel report and all sorts of nonsense. Under which constitution? Under which constitution? Under which even when you have had any kind of, no matter how free, no matter how fair, the winner will come to straight to defend and uphold a constitution that enslaves the rest of the people, that enable corruption, and then tomorrow begin to cry about corruption. And so we went from that, phase of delegitimization. That phase is completed, and we have moved into the decommissioning because at least matter of debate whether that constitution is dead or alive. It is now dead. That's why the National Assembly was talking about writing another constitution. In ignorance of believing that they are the ones who write it. And then Orisababa began to point to them the way that to draw power from a constitution that does not from an instrument that does not exist. If we were to quote Emeka Anyaoku, then on second choice of power by one said that has abandoned that position since 2013. Can we all believe this kind of tragedy? And the parade themselves as human rights lawyers, they sustain the constitution, telling the enemy to advance in their rampage against the people. We have completed that delegitimization. The fact that the National Assembly has owned up to the death of that constitution in the manner they done, because we are saying burn them in Kano and his co-travelers in that garden of the horribles. If I were to quote Professor Lumumba, if you did not understand what you meant in what you were doing in the baptism, you only admitted the fact that the existing constitution is dead and can no longer carry the union. The ignorance of thinking that you have constitution, you have power to make the right constitution, your powers lawmaking doesn't extend to constitution making. Constitution making requires constituent powers that flow in and belong exclusively to the constituent component that own the sovereignty. It's an instrument of their sovereignty. It is inalienable. That means nobody can take it from them. Even in the colonial era, when the British were here, stomping around, it was only suppressed because there was a supervening sovereignty. That sovereignty is now replaced and operated by the illicit federal government of Nigeria. The Federation of Nigeria of today is the cadence of the Nigeria of unitary Nigeria defined by this constitution is the fraud that has replaced the dummy that has replaced the defunct Federation of Nigeria that died since 1967. Since the 27th of May 1967, Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon fractured the four regions that were federating into 3 states whose economic assets and political all the powers were handed to the federal government, the illicit federal government that he headed. And so what we are now is that with the purpose of that constitution, they are struggling to go to it. They were shut down all of where they were looking at. Initially, some of them thought, okay, let's go to 1963 constitution. We said no. 1963 constitution will leave the Niger Delta in the belly of the majority East, the majority Igbo. 1963 constitution will leave the middle belt in the belly of the caliphate. If not for 1963, in which the Midwest got removed from the belly of the Yoruba, but why the British avoided it in 1914? They were avoiding it all through the conferences that are happening all over the years. What Minas has done is now compelling to request to the owners of the sovereignty before anything that can become Nigeria and this constitution. If no other reason, what we are now that the constitution that tied them into this union of death has been defeated and is dead. The remedy available to them is one dictated by their sovereignty. The only thing they require to exercise it, the only requirement for that sovereignty to be with them, to be basis of that execution, is that they are each in their ancestral spaces, undisputed ancestral spaces. So the Yoruba will be in their Yoruba land. Inalienable with them. They only need to say, we are not going to any meeting with anybody in Abuja. We are no longer interested in that union that cannot be defined, that cannot be. We call the economic access. Get guns from wherever they can get guns, because it was that fraudulent constitution that prevented them from using guns. As it is with them, so it is in the eastern part. The dog that have been slaughtered to, because the constitution that tied them to that union of death is now dead itself. The constitution that took the economic access is now dead, defeated. The constitution that forbid them from the same thing with the middle belt. The government that are hanging around while they are stopping their people, they tell them to go to Abuja to collect money in the name of those same people. But when those who know better than you tell you that the constitution that took your way has seized the guns from you and been defeated, then you develop profit. You become Nigeria, you begin to sing anthem with people who are slaughtering you. We have entered the phase of the decommissioning of that constitution. What does that entail? The altar call in which leaders will be inviting those who now agree that that constitution is a problem that has to be solved, like the colloquial leaders, at least in their 3 points report, they accepted that it has to be replaced wholesale, and that and so items 1, 2, 3 of our 5-point proposition is already common ground even with the National Assembly, because you cannot say you are going to write a new constitution. You cannot admit that the constitution is untenable, and you want to keep it still. It's not to be done. And you cannot ask us to wait for another election before we go to attend to it, because people are being slaughtered right now. When it can be solved now, why are we waiting? And that brings me to the question of the people who are still hanging around the government house, whether at the center or in the states, president, governor, senators, in the days ahead, they will have to answer the question, the difficult question of where are you drawing the powers by which you are governing Nigeria, by which you are pointing guns at people, by which you are selling 10 million of food every day and sharing the money in Abuja. They are going to have to answer that question, because the constitution, if any one of them is still ignorant on that point or listening to characters like Osekama and Abakola, and certain literate lawyers, if anybody is still listening to them, I will point church people, the people who are committing that treason against us, hanging onto the constitution that has been defeated by the owners of sovereignty. I will direct them to go of that constitution, to go and see for themselves that that section says that sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government, through this constitution, derives all the powers and authority. I repeat, that section 14.2a of 1999 Constitution will explain to them that sovereignty, I'm quoting now, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. Whether we visit the question of what happened in 1999 against that choice, only not have anything that you can call constitution from which government can draw power and authority except the people in exercise of their sovereignty. Make it. If we benchmark what they did in 1999 against that requirement, you will see that the people did not make any constitution. Proof being decree number 24 that is printed in the document, in the constitution itself. And so it has been illicit from the first day. It has been illegitimate from the first day. Because when the American say that the constitution of Nigeria is illegitimate, on which date did it become illegitimate? Of course they said from the start. And so those who are still hanging in government house today in 2024, blowing siren and doing all kinds of things in the name of governance, and stealing and borrowing in our name. See that are happening in Delta right now, in the Delta territories. When that question will be raised, it will be at an inconvenient hour. It will be at an inconvenient juncture. It may be in a case where you're not going to be able to explain your own side of why you decided to embark on that criminality against the people who are struggling to extricate themselves from bondage and death, unspeakable misery. The time to think, the time to consider, the time to reconsider is now. Whether you want to be on the side of the people who are trying to save themselves from death, that impose that constitution that is killing them. You have already committed enough offense to deserve every kind of punishment that a mob can administer, can adjudge. Good for you. But we are standing in the middle to say, let it not become more rowdy than it is already. Let us come down from our high horses and go to transition. And what's the first stage? We must identify who the way the people are. For those who are planning to go to write the constitution, the ones who are those who are saying let's go back to 1963, we have more than enough reason to say let's not go about that. Can get on YouTube and search for the title Alfred Babalola when he made that suggestion of let's go back to 1963. Back to 1963 is in that broadcast. Then around 2014 conference report. Again, the leaders answer to the conference report is what the people now want. It's a capital because in 2014, the next 2020 three things happened for which the conference are the product of it. The first thing is that the terms of reference of that conference, part of the terms of reference is that whatever they discuss into the existing constitution, into the 1999 constitution. So that sacrosanct. It wasn't the instruction of the committee. The mandate in the background, the president, is that the conference should go and examine 1914 and the 1959-60 that became independent, so that we can see why bond after 100 years. We are not bonding at all. It's related to government, to whom the conference, to whose office the conference was domiciled. The terms of reference began to change into the constitution. Minas rejects that. Anything concerning that conference, nothing. The second round of rejection, the first decision that conference of 2014 took a plenary on the floor the question of unity of Nigeria. That is that foundation that is the source of our problem. That our unity, the question of our unity is non-negotiable. No area for any discussion. It was their own decision, a plenary on the floor of the country. That was the very first decision they took. People can go and research it. So to that extent, every other business they did in the because the reason the conference was convened is to find out why everybody is walking away, everybody in the union. So it was a union dispute that they were supposed to come to. That was the summary of what they did by that resolution, first resolution. That they did not visit the question of union. Because it's when you answer that question that you now go to the consequential questions of if you are going to be in the union, on what terms. They voted the two questions and went on making over 600 recommendations. Then the third, which is as grievous, is the question of basis of representation. Who were the people that came to that conference of 2014 and in what capacity? You have to in the colloquium. So there was a great representation, all the great men, eminent personalities. Is it eminent personalities are talking about, I'm happy that Chief asked him whether he was not a lawyer to be raising the kind of suggestion he was raising about National Assembly that we're going to write a new constitution based on the 2014 conference. The people that ought to be meeting in anything that will become constitution are the sovereign constituent components of Nigeria. That's the peoples of Nigeria in whom the sovereignty resides. The Ijo of Ijoland, the Ogoni of Ogoniland, the Igbo of Igboland, the Yoruba of Yorubaland, the Edo of Edoland, the Tiv of Tivland, the Idoma of Idomaland, the Berom of Beromland. It is their lands that are conscripted, are confiscated and conscripted into the Union of Nigeria. The problem, the dispute, the difficulties is how will we federate. That was the question that took them to Aburi. That was what became war. That is the question everybody has been invaded. That was the question the British invaded when they consolidated the treaties they made with the various kingdoms, independent kingdoms. They consolidated those treaties into what became 1914 amalgamation without reference to the owners of sovereignty. And so, the conference of 2014, in going to pay powers all around Nigeria to select passers-by, you come to a rowdy brother and say, okay, you have the Urubanim, come along. You dress like Yoruba people. Okay, come, we are having a conference now. That was the kind of thing they did. The only conference that will have constituent powers will be one in which Yoruba people sit in Yoruba land, elect who will discuss their future in a meeting with other people, and mandate them specially for that purpose. The people so elected will have to be mandated with the constituent powers to go to discuss the Yoruba sovereignty with other people. Anything short of that, as the Yoruba is doing, Ijo is doing, Igbo is doing, in the first of the two legs, the two stages we talk about in our item 4, those who are pretending they do not know that they do not know about those 5-point propositions, they can continue their pretense, but we are going to work with that. Nothing will be added, nothing will be subtracted. We know they may remain adamant and recalcitrant. Operate as usual. We are going to take advantage of that arrogance and that obstinacy because it is in ignorance that they are doing what they are doing. If no meeting is called, it's even better for us because we are going to walk away unchallenged from this union of debt, and with our assets and whatever we need to defend ourselves in our territories upon the debt of the Union of Nigeria erected upon this fraud of 1999. And so we are clarifying all of this so that we can understand where we have arrived. That constitution is dead and the altar call is going out. That altar call will be in the form of a portal in which those who agree with us, wherever they may be across the length and breadth of Nigeria, even in international sake, those who are Nigerians from our part, everybody can put down their particulars. And what is it they're signing up to? They will only need to, in that altar call, if they sign up, they're saying, we agree with Minas that this constitution, just those 5 points of proposition, that we agree with Minas that this constitution is the problem confronting Nigeria that must be solved now. That constitution has to be decommissioned wholesale. That we cannot proceed to another election until we solve that problem. That is immediate. And that it has to be in a two-stage procedure in which in the first stage, the constituent components will first recommit to going into union because the default where we are now, the collaborative constitution has ended the union, in case anybody does not know. Don't you know, the union erected on that 1999 constitution is already dead and gone. So if no meeting happens, everybody will just take their land and leave. There will be no need to go to any meeting anywhere. So the transition we're talking about is still just leaving the door open for them to come to, for the voting to be a little more orderly than it could be if unilateral and indiscriminate self-redemption actions, self-activation, determination actions, because that's what we follow. Because self-determination is inalienable. It's not something you need anybody's permission to do. You want to live in your space in peace. And as I agree with your neighbors who agree with you, it does not require anybody else's permission than those who own the lands, the ancestral lands that have been detained under this fraud of a criminal enterprise called Nigeria. So, from that altar call, when sufficient numbers of our people have woken up, they are marching straight to their jailbreak. If that transition has already been instituted, for characters like Tambo, when they're talking about the necessity of now into transition, the inconclusive election of fiasco, in which the constitution was, thrown under the bus by the Supreme Court, has only produced an interregnum. There's somebody parading as president, we have no problem with him. But you haven't secured what it was in February of 2023. Extending that accommodation of receiving all that can be taken from that presidential election of 2023 to transform it into a transition. The time that South Africa had to do in 1990, and what does it entail? Wisdom. Somebody must find the courage, somebody must find the honesty to go to make that announcement. Is the problem of Nigeria. We will solve it. We will not go to another election before we solve it. The owners of two questions of whether they want to continue in union, and if yes, on what terms. That is what the business of transition will be. And 5 of our proposition is only outline what it should say. Is there difficulty in working with this plug and play solution at this time with all the things happening in Nigeria? Or where are they going with what they are doing? Where will it go? In 5 years, in 10 years, in 2 years? We saw in course of the Easter weekend, Tinubu going about begging people to not believe in Nigeria that's not working for them, so that they should not curse Nigeria. For a Nigeria that is sucking their blood, you are asking them not to curse that Nigeria? You are asking them to start to believe with you that they will build on a foundation of fraud that is injuring them and killing them. They are not going to go join you in that stupidity. And so the altar call will result directly in the joint jailbreak, and there will be no notice. There will be no gap in terms of let us walk through another many years to come to where once people turn up on their own, they can decide when they've had enough. It may be in 2 months, it may be in 6 months, it may be just any time. An incident may happen that may compare, like the kind of killings happening in the Niger Delta area today. It may just be one wrong thing that has happened somewhere, and then something will trigger something. Many, 90% of those who will have to manage any crisis that befalls Nigeria now on a certain scale will not be approaching that crisis with a view to saving Nigeria. They want to save themselves, because that Nigeria is a monster that feeds on its captives, the peoples of Nigeria. And so people now realize that if they must live, that monster that feeds on their blood must die. Yoruba now know that. Ijo now know that. Igbo now know that. Ogoni knows that. The thief have learned that. The Baron are saying that if they will have to live, if they will have to be alive, the monster that is designed to feed on their blood, unitary Nigeria, will have to be put to death. And NINAS has provided a framework by which that monster can be eased out of place and its victims liberated into their sovereignties and self-determination. They can then have a union of consent, a union of agreement, not a union under gunpoint as we have it now. Those sustaining that union at gunpoint must learn that, must know that they are committing treason against those who are struggling to extricate themselves from that constitution. They have to pray that the matter is not resolved on the street instead of around a table. We stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now it's time for comments and questions. Please, if you have any comment or question, kindly tap your mic twice or raise your hand. Are you invited to do so? Sir, please mute your mic. Mr. Nadi, please mute your mic. Okay, Ndidi, please, you have the floor for your comment or question.
Okay, mine is a comment, and it's the point that Tony, the NINA spokesman, made about now that everybody has seen that the Constitution is dead, where is government getting their powers from? That is such an important question, and we can see it in things like if, let's say, there's been an accident and there's a doctor around or a nurse around, only they can sort of give injections or do certain things to the body of the casualty. If anybody else who hasn't got the powers does it, it'll be seen as an assault or even attempted murder. You see what I'm saying? Things like if, let's say, you're a police officer, let's say a UK police, you can't just go into any house willy-nilly. You need powers to be able to enter into the houses. Otherwise, you'll be a burglar, you'll be a trespasser. So I think that we really need to hold on to that. What powers are the people who call themselves governors, senators, ministers, presidents, vice, etc., local government chair? What powers? Where are they getting their powers to do what they're doing, given that we've got no constitution? So that's my comment. I yield the mic.
Thank you, Ndidi. Any more question or comments? Okay. Okay, Alajita, you have the floor to make your comment or question. Can you unmute your mic, Alajita Jude?
I've done that. Hello? Are you hearing me now?
Yes, sir. We can't hear you. Your mic is muted, sir. Alajita Jude, your mic is still muted. Okay. Mr. Onige.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
You have the floor for your comments, yes.
Good evening, everyone. Onyabuchukwemeka is my name. I've been following this movement for some time now, especially listening to a very profound spokesman, Mr. Tony Nadi. There's no one who would hear him and not be inspired. As a matter of fact, you will be compelled to share it with others. What I've observed so far is the critical mass, the common people, especially young people, who are not still awake to this situation. I was a part of that group until we started to open our minds to enlightenment, like what our farm leader teaches constantly. And I really admire the passion
for which he dishes out this information constantly so that it remains in our mind. But the issue is that most of us, especially young people, who should have taken another turn, have focused our mind on election, changing of leadership as the only way. Even when some of them know that the constitution is a problem, they feel that, because I spoke with many people during the election, they feel that, especially like in the case of PDP, they need somebody who will listen to them to get into power. Then they will now begin to talk about changing the constitution. But that has not worked. That method has not worked, and it will not work because the saboteurs will continue to lay hold on this fraudulent constitution. But whether it's laziness on our part or trying to play it safe, unfortunately, people are already looking towards 2027. They're already talking about it. They're already preparing for it because that's the only thing they are prepared to do. Even when they know that there's no solution. During the last election, 2023, ask them, now what if you fail? You are projected to be, you bought a candidate and you want to go for election. What about the plan B? They were so quiet like the graveyard. They don't have any other solution. So they are prepared to continue to do one thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. So that's where the problem is. Now for me, I believe, and that's why I decided to join Minas. And luckily for me, I was able to speak with Dr. that day, and she put me through a lot of things. Because I've come to understand that political parties, elections will no longer solve the problem, but political organizations like this. And so it must become a work of evangelism for us, just like Christendom is. Where we begin to speak to everybody we find, where we begin to tell them, begin to send these messages across. Unfortunately for us, many people in Nigeria are so poor that they don't have access to the internet to get messages like that. I really don't know how those of them, because another part of the women too are the poor masses who are in remote areas who don't even understand what is going on. I believe that some people of Nigerians still believe that leadership is the problem. How come to understand that constitution is the problem? So they cling to leadership, they keep fighting to change their leaders instead of changing the constitution. So how do we even get those people who do not have access to the internet to hear most of these things? How do we get them to begin to find this information and they begin to think in? So that's what I have to say. I read the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madi, please. I don't know if you want to respond to that. Mr. Madi, are you still here? Okay.
Sorry, I had to unmute. It's a miss. All of the people we have spoken about, way it means to become to join the obedient movement. They went enough internet access to get their previous knowledge to know that it's Peter that is the great leader. So it's just a matter of people not thinking things through, and so we'll continue to. What has to happen does not coming. The only thing that will change is that if less people know, all the while they didn't come, has that saved the constitution from the collapse that has now befallen it? When we go to the next milestone, that decommissioning stage, that joint jailbreak that will come with it, there will only be collateral damage. Many of them will be in the wrong place at the wrong time because they do not know. They chose not to know. The information is all over the place. The very church leaders that talk to them round the clock are not saying anything now. They themselves, who went to the election and who have fallen into the calamity we were warning them for 3 years, to avoid. If they do not see the danger that is coming towards them, if they do not have sufficient concern to now want to find a better answer, if they are still hanging around waiting for when Peter will carry them to Eldorado in 2027, then we come to the conclusion that they truly deserve to perish. Because they have chosen to work with ignorance when there was knowledge. They've chosen to work with dishonesty when the truth is staring them in the face. If you go to another election, will INEC repent and do different? Will the Supreme Court now turn a new leaf? And where would that leave that constitution? When you now know that even if Peter becomes president, you cannot, he is not going to be able to do anything about that constitution. Himself and his friends, of course, will make money. Some of them will make fame. That's why it ends. So the Fulani Conquest agenda would overtake everybody. If what happened in 2023 has happened the way it happened, did the Fulani killings not increase since after the election? Look at the quantum of kidnappings going on. Every day you hear new figures in different locations. So the conquest agenda is ongoing, and it will meet them where they are in that stupidity and foolishness of arguing with the signboard at a time their lives are in danger. They have been encircled by this enemy. So they can sit, whether it's in rural or urban places, and argue in their beer parlors and hope that Peter will come and save them. We will have no sympathy for people who chose to kill themselves. I stop here. Thank you.
Adama, you have the floor, please.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. And our spokesperson, we can never thank you enough for everyday enlightenment. And for the Chukwemeka who asked the question, I wanted to add something to what the spokesman said. You get them on all these channels, all these media houses. You get those people who are very ignorant, or who seem to be, or who claim to be ignorant, because they go there to lament, calling names, but they really want freedom. So if you go to Arise News, if you go to channels, if you go to AIT, especially in the morning, you will find them. You will go to live chat. They listen, they read. And if it torments them, they will complain. But those, some of them who are against, some of these Yorubas who are still standing with one leg on the mandate of Tinubu, some people are still living in denial. Suffering and smiling, or smiling and suffering, have become their ideology. But for many, it is not. So, it is not a question or the problem of internet. Most of them have internet. But like spokesperson said, some have chosen to perish. Because either, why should I follow this person? You know, in Nigeria, it's just following an individual has become their norm. But people do not follow ideology or logic or plan. That is the problem. They like to follow an individual. They like to sing the praises of all these individuals, especially the politicians, because of whatever they are gaining from it, or because this person comes from my background. But that is not the issue. The issue is freedom for all. Because like Nigeria is today, it has been like that for ages. And nobody has come up with, nobody has summoned courage to champion the cause of liberation and the freedom of everybody, except Ninas. And that's why many of us continue to see Ninas as that vehicle that will take us to that El Dorado, if there is any El Dorado. that liberation because a free man is a happy man. But an enslaved man is a cantankerous person, is not happy with himself. He can choose to commit suicide. And Nigeria has become a den of suicide for people. It is sucking blood every day, every hour. So, for all others, please, we can get to live chats every morning if you have time. You will be typing whatever. Either you take the hashtag Ninas is right, transition now, or end Nigeria so that people will leave, or whatever slogan or whatever hashtag that will project Ninas. Please let us use it. They are coming up. And then my question is, when is that portal going to be available for those who will be asking, how do they join Ninas? That is the question, from what the spokesperson said in this altar call, because we have advertised this altar call and people are waiting for it. So, and that have already.
Adam, I will take that off stage, please.
Okay, thank you so much. So, let us, put in our efforts. We are getting there. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. John, okay, you have the floor for your question or comment, please. Please make it brief. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening and thank you, everybody. My advice or my, in short, is for I am very happy that there's a young man who just spoke before Sister Ada.
Excuse me, sir, please, can you be more audible?
I have a difficult this thing here. Sorry. Is it better?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please. I'm having even myself. It's difficult for me hearing you from here, but let me try. My advice is for in short, obedience in particular. For those who hope in P2B or whatever to remedy Nigeria. It is only a fool who can see hope on that with what is happening in Nigeria today. We all have ears open. You see what is happening with the so-called Labour Party, who will lead you to win the election and snatch the power that will make your man, P2B, to reorganize Nigeria and make it better. So, the earlier the better, because they have cannibalized your party for now, even from this moment. So before you get to 2027, you can imagine what it will be. Presently, you can see what is happening. The judiciary, you see what is happening. They are the only people that are having increment in their salary. They are the only people that are benefiting, are being, government is paying very good attention to them. In short, the rigging has already started. So the area, the better you people realize that you cannot get you want with this 1999 Constitution and the people you are hoping on, the fraudsters, the politicians in Abuja, we cannot get a better Nigerian with them. Apart from the fact that we are operating a constitution that is a fraud. Even if we have a constitution that is made by the people, with them in power, you cannot get a better Nigeria. So the earlier the better, you go back, think well, listen to Ninas, and kill yourself. Let us get out of this mess. Let us get out of this mess. I'm very sorry for the youth, for the younger ones. As for me, I'm getting older. But it will be a disgrace to me that I keep quiet, knowing fully well that it is not good for the future of our generation, for the future of our children. The things can never get better under this situation, under this Nigeria. The arrangement we have at hand, it can never get better. So the earlier the better, you keep under Ninas. Tell it to every of your youth. Tell it to every of your members. Tell it to even P2B that Nigeria cannot work. Thank you. And I'll yield my mic.
Thank you, sir. Any more comments, questions? In the absence of any further comment or question, please, indeed, you have the floor for key points.
Okay, hello everyone for being here. The topic today was NINA's constitutional force majeure has shut down the 1999 Constitution. So transition now or dissolution. The key points are that we are at a critical threshold, and that's something. When the NINA spokesman uses certain words, we need to pick up on them. Because one thing about the NINA strategy is it is precise and specific. So we are at a critical threshold. And going back, the Fulani conquest agenda was identified as the problem. That's the problem that we are all in. That's why nothing is working, and that's why we're in danger. Then they identified that the 1999 Constitution is their instrument. So, and the willing to politicians, so those are the indigenous politicians, those amongst us, are those who collectively working with the enemy, and they enforce the 1999 Constitution that makes us slaves in our homeland by hijacking our sovereignty. Some people may think, oh, you're using the word slave, because they're thinking about the slavery in America and the Caribbean. That was chattel slavery, that word chattel, yeah? So there are different forms of slavery. The ones that we are in is the kind of slavery where your sovereignty and your self-determination are hijacked, and that's how come we're not meeting our potential, and people are jackpotting abroad in order to meet their potential. So that's a different kind of slavery from the ones that our brothers in America were subjected to. So now the theory, so all the work that has been done in the past 24 years, that has been sort of like, there's been some practical, yes, but a lot of it has been theory. It now has to transform to applicable practice. And the spokesman, he used the word formations of our choice. That means that the indigenous ethnic nations are going to club together in formations of their choice, in blocks, if you like, yeah. So these are being discussed for charters of relationships, and that would be needed for federating, the kind of federating they want to do. And so far we've had all forms of joint multi-regional actions, for example, the solemn assemblies, and of course the the Freedom Park Declaration, and also the constitutional force majeure. And through the constitutional force majeure, consensus was built against that constitution, against its enforcers as well. And we now have to operationalize the defeat of the constitution, which means we have no union. And that is so key to understand, because if we have no union, it actually means that we are free from the Fulani conquest agenda, but we now need to make it real, because that's the theory. We now need to make it real, and we can, because we've got the sovereignty. And recently there was the Chief Emeka Anyoko-led colloquium on Nigeria's constitutional future, and they came to the consensus, even though they never mentioned NINAS, that the 1999 Constitution is illegitimate. What does that mean? If something is illegitimate, if I've got money that's illegitimate, that means it's counterfeit. Money that's illegitimate means I've got no money. Really, you don't, even 2-year-old would be able to figure that out. But so they said that the 1999 Constitution is illegitimate. No number of amendments can ever make it legitimate. That means that all these constitutional amendments that have been happening since 1999 have just been deceiving people and wasting money. And they also said it has a flawed origin. So they're saying very clearly that there's no constitution. So we need to run with that information and keep on running with it. And the more we run with it, more people will, will get to see that we're right. And so no constitution means no union. What is real are the indigenous. We have to do things in an orderly way. We don't want to go into chaos. We don't want out of frying pan into fire, because we lose again. So we've got here an orderly process, a framework for making practical the tasks to be done. And the CFM, the Constitutional Force Measure, it gives it structure and it gives it the work in phases. And Peter Obi was mentioned, and that is important because there are different kind of levels of willing tools, and he's a major one. He's the one who got drafted by Britain to drag Nigerians to elections that will renew the life of that 1999 Constitution instead of dragging them to transitioning. And the important thing for us to note also is that all these things that, and Peter Obi is still talking about 2027 elections. Okay, he's not the only one, but the political parties, they're all talking about it. And they all know that there's no union. So what they're doing is treason. And it's not just the political class are, of course, the willing tools, but they've got their helpers, and their helpers are the church, and of course influencers, the Nigerian Bar Association, etc. So we really need to let people know that the Constitution is dead. And these words that the spokesman uses, these are key. If you don't understand why is he using the word dead, you go and do the research. A constitution, a proper one, is a living document. That means that, the people can amend it and change it depending on what challenges come up as the years go by. The Nigerian one is dead. It cannot be amended. Remember what they said in the colloquium, that nothing is going to make it legitimate. We never wrote it. It's dead. So we are moving now from delegitimization, because now it's dead. Everybody knows the Constitution's no good. We don't have one, to decommissioning. So we need to have in our minds that that's where we are now. We're decommissioning. And a very important question, which the spokesman said, is we need the answer to a very important question. It is, where is government drawing its powers from, given that the Constitution that creates government, it creates the governors, the senators, the vice president, the president, given that that thing is dead, there's no Constitution, and all that they're doing, saying that resources of ethnic nations belong to them, all the things they're doing, where they're getting the powers to do all that from. And the last thing that I'll say is that by now everybody should know that for Nigerians to live, Nigeria must die. Nigeria is not our project. All these 36 states and one FCT, all these things, 774 local government, it is not our project. And even if Nigeria dies, our ethnic nations don't. So it is our ethnic nations and those formations of their choice that can decide what they want, okay? So that's really all I have to say. Thank you. I yield the mic.
Thank you, Ndidi. Thank you, Ndidi. At this point, we have the closing remark. Mr. Onige, please. You have just like 3 minutes to do the closing remark. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much again for the opportunity. I want to say that the Nigerian people are always eager to look into something. So because they have no much choice, they have looked onto two devils. They have two devils to choose from. But I also believe that leaders as an organization is the hope of our salvation. That's what I believe. I believe that political organizations like this are what will solve the problem, not political parties, not election. And so for that reason, especially with the young people, we're putting our energy into pushing this movement until people can no longer avoid it. To create that awareness and to ensure that everybody welcomes it. I saw yesterday, a very prominent, obedient influencer, social media influencer. He shared a video that our leader, the spokesperson, talked about. This is an altar call video. I saw him sharing it online yesterday. He had a lot of views and a lot of comments. And I noted in my head, I was like, this is it. This point, people are already receiving it. So people are eager to look into something that will save them. On the part of Without parts, the ignorant ones and the wicked ones who are feeding on the ignorant. The ignorant being the part where the majority of people are. And they're catching up today. And so we'll continue and we'll begin to vigorously share, to reach out to them. Just like somebody commented that on social media and all of that, we begin to go around to teach it, because so we are taking this as an evangelical work. We will not stop, we will not rest, because our lives hang in the balance. We don't have any other choice, we don't have any other way. We must fulfill this task. And I thank God, I really thank God for the energy as Pokemon has. I started listening to the video on YouTube, and it cuts my heart like a wildfire. And I told that God will continue to strengthen you and to use you to bring validation to all of us. I think that's all I have to say. I read the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Wege, for that. Mr. Nadia, I don't know if you want to have any contributions before the announcements to end today's section.
Nothing but to thank those who have come and to assure us that the feedbacks we are getting from all kinds of places, near and far, high and low. The people in power are running head and skelter looking for, what new grounds they can find to carry on. But the ones who were deceived before, who did not know, but who are now in pain, are also looking in our direction more openly for how to proceed. And so I can assure us that it's only a matter of a little further escalation for matters to come to a head. And when it does, the outcome is already when you say something going to a tipping point, the point at which there's always a line which once is crossed, like in a race, you cross that line, you have won that race. You don't cross that line, you cannot win that race. And so that crossing of that line has been achieved. If the 1999 Constitution was an Iroko tree, a very big Iroko tree that even 5 people holding hands cannot more or less form a complete circle around the base, if that is the size of the Iroko tree, it has come down, it has fallen over, and all the institutions of Nigeria, all of what has been holding us hostage, are anchored, are built on that, perching on that Iroko tree. Now they are hanging in the balance, they are hanging in the air, flapping their wings. There's nowhere they're going to go other than where we allow them to, because the ground is occupied by us who are coming from somewhere, and then the thing has fallen. And if they come down, it will be on our own terms. And so when people join us and we raise that question of where do you draw the power to, some of them will just be falling and dying. Others will then surrender. We told them they have to surrender unconditionally to this plan, or they will be defeated comprehensively, because the Iroko upon which they were perching and urinating on all of us is down. The Goliaths have been brought down. Did the army of Philistine wait to fight when their Goliath was brought down? No, they fled. That's what's going to happen. Except this one surrender, they are going to have to, suffer the defeat that they've brought upon themselves, because they had several years to act differently, but they chose to be arrogant. Thank you. I'll stop here.